How's it going, everyone? Adam Bongiovanni back here with another OnlineBookClub.org interview. Now I'm talking today with the mastermind behind TheBookDesigner.com, Joel Friedlander. Now TheBookDesigner.com is a blog that has an abundance of information that's designed to help people publish their books. He has articles, he has online courses, he has books dedicated to helping people publish their books because it's not an easy task. Joel has so much to offer and he has so much knowledge. I'm so excited to talk to him and maybe learn a little bit, because there's so much to learn from Joel, and I really hope you can take something from this. Let's jump right into it. How's it going, everyone? Adam Bongiovanni back here with another OnlineBookClub.org interview. I'm here today with the great Joel Friedlander. Now, Joel is the mastermind behind TheBookDesigner.com, a blog that has an abundance of information that helps authors go through the publishing process. Joel has articles, online courses, and books dedicated to helping you get your book published. Joel, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, Adam.
No problem at all. And I was just talking to Joel before this. He's done so many interviews, so I hope we could cover the little amount that maybe other interviewers haven't covered. But I'm sure you've talked about everything to this point. So let's go all the way back to your childhood. Was reading and writing always a big part of your life? Is that where the passion started?
No. I was a dreamy kid, had a very active imagination. That's come in kind of useful once I became a writer. But I really didn't start reading seriously and writing until I was in college.
Oh, wow. Okay. Joel, you know what's funny? I was the exact same way. I grew up maybe at a very young age, like enjoying reading, but when I got into college, I kind of rediscovered my love for books. So usually most authors and people in the book community I talk to, they've been reading and writing their whole lives. So I'm like, okay, like, you know, I relate to them, but at the same time I don't. So you're the first person where we've kind of both started at the same spot, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, you know, you can't predict or determine these things. It's something that happens to you in your life. And I've been pretty grateful. I've been an avid reader ever since my teenage years and late teens. And, you know, then I started writing soon thereafter.
Yeah. And did you have a genre of choice for reading?
Well, I tend to cycle around different enthusiasms. So, for instance, there was a period of time when I was a really avid thriller reader, and I just plowed through hundreds of thrillers. Wow. You know, you get an author you really liked, and you'd read all of their books. I read thrillers. I went through a period of reading a lot of sci-fi. I really enjoyed that. And it's really a great era now for people who like fantasy, sci-fi, all of those genres, because there's just so much being published now. Then for many years I read largely nonfiction, and recently, this past year, I've been reading a lot of nonfiction about human biology.
Oh, wow.
But I still love reading fiction, and I can tell you that last summer I went through another one of these crazy obsessive phases, and spent probably about 4 months reading all of the novels of Haruki Murakami, the Japanese novelist.
Wow, so you've read it all. So, and I'm sure being involved with books in your day-to-day life helps with that, and you kind of could pick and choose what you like. So let's go all the way back to the 80s. And that was when you self-published your first book. Now, how difficult was it compared to today with the resources and the technology to publish a book back then? What was so different about it?
Well, let me set the stage for you there, because when I decided to publish that book, and the title of the book is Body Types, the Enneagram of Essence Types, I was actually working in the publishing business at the time. I was the director of production at a place called Aperture Publishing, a photography book publisher. So it wasn't hard for me to actually produce the book. That was because I knew typesetters, I knew exactly what I needed to do and how to put the book together. On the other hand, it was really challenging marketing books back then. Now, you realize that in 1986, there was no internet. There was no print on demand. We had to actually print thousands of books and pay for them before we could even sell one copy. And that really sharpened my skills and my appreciation of how to market books in an environment where it was kind of tilted against you.
Wow. So let's say you grew, like, let's fast forward 20 years and you were in the same spot in like the mid-2000s. do you think you wouldn't have as much knowledge and understand the business as much as you do because you've had to go through it all before it was a lot more simple and you just really went to your computer and went to work?
Yes, and it's interesting that you threw that in about went to your computer because, you know, really, when I wrote that book, there were no personal computers.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the book and rewrote it on a typewriter.
Wow.
And so now the first PCs came in right after that, so I actually ended up editing that book, the final drafts on a computer. Mm. But yes, of course. I mean, if you start at the bottom and if you've been through all of the processes, you know, I've worked as a typesetter, I've worked as a book designer. You know, if you have all those skills, then, you know, you bring that experience to you every time you answer a question or pick up a book or think about starting a new project. And I certainly bring all of my experience with me on each project. I'm publishing 2 books this year, and it's a lot easier.
Oh yeah.
These days.
Oh yeah. It's 2018. They make it very, and of course I'm not an author, so I still don't know the whole process. But I'm sure it's a bit easier than it was 30 years ago. So I'll actually listen to this little tidbit of information in another interview that you did. In the 90s, you mentioned that you began working with a lot of self-publishers. Now, would people just, in understanding your vast knowledge for the publishing industry and designing books, would they just begin to call you and ask you for advice and ask you to help them? How would that process go about?
Well, back in those days, Adam, I mean, you know, there were entrepreneurial authors, and there always have been. Mm-hmm. Even though self-publishing was not popular and it was really looked down on, mm-hmm. there were still a lot of entrepreneurial authors. These are mostly nonfiction authors who are subject matter experts who were looking for people to help them publish a book. Now, maybe they found out, I don't know how they found out about it or conceived the plan. But hey, I was in the phone book, which at the time was, you know, like going to Google today. You go to Google, you type in book designer or book producer or whatever. In those days, you looked it up in the phone book. So I would, you know, I was in that business for quite a while, and I would have authors bring me their projects and see if I would help them by designing and producing the books, you know, because sometimes they need them printed. There were no ebooks back then when I was doing that. So, you know, I had a wide variety of very entrepreneurial authors writing on subjects they knew very well, and usually they knew how to reach the people who would be interested in their book, and that was the key factor. Exactly like me. Like, I published that book, Body Types, in 1986. I published a second edition in 1992, but I knew exactly who was interested in that book and how to reach them. And so we did, you know, for a little tiny microscopic publisher, we did pretty well.
That's awesome. No, so then fast forward to 2010, you wake up one morning and you decide you want to start the Book Designer. Now, obviously, I'm sure it was a little more complex than that, and I'm sure there was a little more thinking that went into it. But explain to me what made you want to just go for it, because of course you have this vast knowledge of the publishing industry and designing books, but what made you say, you know what, 2010, I'm going to start this blog?
That's interesting. I actually started the blog the end of 2009, and there were 3 factors pushing me to do that. For one thing, I spent 2 years in a free writing practice. And free writing is very fast writing. You do to a prompt with a timer, and it really builds up your writing muscles. It improves your writing. It puts you in touch with your own creative impulse, and you become a fast writer. Mm-hmm. Also, I had been out of the publishing business for a bit, and I was coming back into it, and I wanted to find business, because I had a business, Marin Bookworks, where I produce books for people. It's not that easy to find customers if you just stick to your local area, because you need an author who needs a book design right then. So going online was natural, and also I love to write, so I really wanted to see if a blog would be something that would work for me. And so I took a training course, set up the Book Designer, and started writing. And
I think it might have been on your website actually, that you have published on your website over, was it 700 articles at this point, or is it more than that?
Well, I believe right now we have about 1,700 articles on the site.
Wow.
I've written the majority of those, although I have many more contributing writers than I had in the past because I've kind of turned it into more of a media site. But I have to realize when I got started blogging, I was older than the average new blogger. So I decided that I didn't have as much time as other people. And so instead of posting 1 article a week or 2 articles a week or even 3 articles a week, I was posting new articles or posts 6 days a week. And I did that for 2 years.
Wow. So now I know I'm sure a lot of bloggers.
So when people ask me, Adam, well, how'd you get all that traffic? How'd you build your platform like that? I tell them, well, you have to be willing to do the work.
That's for
if
sure.
If you're not willing to do the work, then you're probably not going to get the results you want. But I was very committed, and it really worked out well for me. I learned a little bit about SEO, how to write for the web, the kind of questions people were asking, where they needed help, and I just wrote to those concerns. And, I write in a conversational, kind of easy-to-read style, and that really helped.
And a lot of people who start blogs, I'm sure, and for me, this has been something that I would always probably worry with if I end up starting a blog, is the proper amount of content. You have to be able to continue to push out content, because if you all of a sudden post 2 weeks of content and you stop, people are obviously going to stop reading, and they might not even find you in the first place. Was that ever it seems like it was never an issue for you, that you always had so much information that you were ready to share. Was there ever a situation where you were nervous you were going to run out of things to write about, or is the industry always changing that you always have something new to kind of introduce?
I would say I confronted that question, what should I write about 3 times a week out of the 6 times a week I was posting. I mean, half the times, there were days I would sit there, it would be 11 o'clock at night, and I wanted to have my post up on midnight, and I'm just staring at the screen thinking, gee, I think I've said everything there is to say. I probably first had that thought when I published about 30 articles. So until you become a blogger and you understand the deadline nature of it, in other words, if you say, I'm going to publish every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, well, you got to be reliable. You have to be trustworthy that you're going to do what you said you were going to do, and you better stick to that schedule.
Exactly.
So I always came up with something to write about. Sometimes they were a little bit more off topic, but if you can connect to your own creative reservoir, you will never, ever, ever run out of things to say.
Wow, that's amazing. I love what you just said there. So I've also read that you had a launch campaign that made over $40,000 in 5 days, and when I read that number for the first time, I had to do a double take because I was amazed at it. You've seen such success with this blog and all of the work that you've put into it. How does that feel after years of really giving your all to this?
Yeah, that was in an interview I did with Yarrow Starek, who was the guy who taught me blogging. I was in his course. And that's a very unusual circumstance, that particular launch. But you have to realize that the blog has changed over the years. I started off with the idea of finding clients for my book design and production business. Then I moved into educating authors. And then when I really understood better what people were looking for, I started to provide e-commerce solutions. In other words, I have 3 e-commerce sites at the moment. I have one called Book Design Templates, where we sell pre-designed book interior templates for authors who want to basically DIY their books. It's the fastest and least expensive way to get a really beautiful, professionally designed, industry standard book interior. They've been wildly popular. I then started a site called AuthorToolkits.com, where we sell tools that help people market their books, and that was the site we ran that launch from. And I've a lot of irons in the fire. So the blog and the ongoing conversation with readers really put me in the position to be successful at offering products and services to my readers. Because after all, we were in a direct one-on-one conversation nonstop for over 2 years by the time I started those businesses, because I started blogging the end of 2009, and I opened the first one of those businesses early 2011. So, or 2013, excuse me, is when we opened Book Design Templates. So I had a lot of experience under my belt. I had been doing a lot of speaking, But basically, the conversation on the blog where people get to ask questions directly of somebody who is an expert on something is really, really incredibly valuable, because every time you're talking to people in that way, you are getting direct market intelligence from your actual market.
Wow. It's so true, though. You're someone who's worked in this field, and you understand, and of course I'm sure you're still learning, but you understand the ins and outs of it. So by someone coming to you with even a simple question that might be simple to you could really put them in the position, whether it be publish their book or get their book out to the right audience or whatever it may be. But it's so, you're right, it's so valuable to talk to someone who has the experience that you have. Now here's a question that I'm so curious, and I'm not sure if there's a specific answer for it, but this is something that I needed to ask for myself, because as a book lover, something I've always been infatuated with is the covers of a book. And what makes a good cover, what draws you in, why do certain covers sell the book better than other covers would? Now, if you had to give advice to an upcoming author, whoever it may be, and on the perfect cover, what's one thing you would tell them? Because I'm so curious about this.
I would hire the right book cover designer.
So invest properly.
A cover designer who is experienced at doing covers in your category, genre, or niche, whatever it is you're writing, because they will understand what appeals to your specific audience. And if you're writing historical fiction, that is completely different than if you're writing how-to books about auto mechanics, which is completely different than if you're writing a memoir, which is completely different than if you're writing essays about current sociological events. I mean, you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
Every audience has expectations, what they're looking for, and what will capture their attention. And a professional book cover designer who works in that genre or category will understand that.
Wow.
I really strongly advise authors to not edit their own books and to not design their own covers. Just about everything else you could pretty much do yourself. But, I really think you need the hand of a professional there, and that would be my best advice.
Love it. That's fantastic, and I'm sure there's so many authors out there who want to do everything themselves, but might not be the best idea. So, Joel, what's next for you? Obviously, you run a successful blog. You have all these other ventures. You've written, according to, I forgot what website it was, but according to one of the book websites out there, it said you've written over 20 books. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, or you're maybe past 30 at this point, but what's next for you?
That's entirely false.
Okay.
Well, I tell you, here's another way a blog can help you. I'm just about to publish, probably next week, a book called The Book Blueprint. That's all about how to create industry standard print books. There's a lot of interest in print books right now. But I have to tell you that book was entirely written on my blog, and all the content is actually available for free on my blog. But if you understand how to monetize things and repurpose content, you can see that I gathered those posts together. I noticed there were some things I hadn't addressed, so I wrote a few more blog posts, and we made it into a book. Wow! It's not that hard. So you're accomplishing two aims at once. So what's next for me is I'm publishing that book. I'm launching a new line of writers' journals called WriteWell Writers' Journals. And later in the year, I'll be publishing a book on creativity. So those things and all the other stuff I do regularly kind of is keeping me pretty busy.
Yeah, Joel, I could tell you're not someone who has a lot of free time based on all the projects you have coming up, which is a good thing. It's better to be busy than not. So where could everyone find you? I know obviously we've talked about TheBookDesigner.com, but can people contact you on social media, and maybe you'll post about all your new projects and the books you have that you're publishing? Where could people find you outside of TheBookDesigner.com?
Yeah, well, TheBookDesigner.com is the best place because I do announce stuff there and let people know what's going on, and I encourage people to get on my mail list because we do a lot of discounting for people on the mail list.
Oh, cool.
I'm pretty active on Twitter, where I'm at JFBookman.
Perfect.
And I've been on Twitter for many years. I really enjoy it. And, I pop up here and there, but I would say that's probably my favorite social media site.
Perfect. No, and everyone, I'm sure I'll definitely be continuing to keep up with all of your success and all that you're doing. I'm a part of your mailing list, and I'm excited to see what's to come. Joel, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I hope to talk to you in the future.
Well, it's been great, Adam. Thanks very much, and hello to all your listeners.
Thank you so much, Joel. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye. In those 20 minutes, I took so much from Joel and so much knowledge. And for a person who started their first blog at the age of 62, and his blog has seen so much success, it's absolutely amazing. He has so much free information to help people who might not understand the publishing industry and might not understand how to self-publish a book on TheBookDesigner.com. So go to his website, check it out, and I'd recommend it to anyone you know who might want to publish a book or enjoys writing but hasn't taken the next step yet. Joel was awesome, and I hope to have him on the show in the future. Please give this video a thumbs up. I truly appreciate it. Subscribe for more content like this every single week, and I'll see you guys next Thursday.